true honor to be here. Thank you for your presence with me. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Laura Coleman, for bringing Sisiba to Pegasus. And in the life of a universally unknown author, these moments are very special, very rare. So when it happens, I mean, writing is hard, and it's even harder to get published. So when this miracle happens, I like to share it with as many friends and as many friends as beautiful as possible. As Sharon mentioned, I'm going to read from the story published in the latest Sisiba. And it belongs to a larger work. It's a tragic comedy about musicians and demons, and that's what you're going to get tonight. You're going to get musicians, and you're going to get demons. It takes place in the Mission District, not too long ago, but maybe because I'm getting old very fast, or maybe because the Bay Area and the Mission in particular is changing so much, it feels like a long, long, long time ago. A time when we were notorious for our wicked cha-cha group. But this is no funky cha-cha, let me warn everybody. Cha-chas, no matter how wicked, no matter how twisted, are not suited for this kind of darkness. This is a tango. Un tango macabro. Carlos Gardel meets Edgar Allan Poe in a dirty, stinky alley in the Mission. This is when the bolero gets drunk. The blues turn upside down, and the ballad collapses under the weight of its own pathos. This is a song really too ghastly for words. That's why I don't have to worry about singing it, and secretly wish I didn't have to write it or share it with you tonight. This is a tune, at least in theory, ideally suited for Rosie in her Evita la Desaparecida mode. So she could blow her most noir trombone licks. Although it would probably be Cuauhtemoc sax, as usual, leading, making sure the lament is juicy, warm, yet desolate. Of all instruments, however, the bass, with its grave, low voice, is the ideal to carry the burden of highlighting the crucial silences and breaks in this tango, which means that we are in Brandon's hands. His chubby fingers, after all, have always moved fiercely up and down the contrabass with the overt intention to rule over the rest of us. His appetite for power only matched by his appetite for burritos. Fortunately, we had Ali, unafraid of dissonance and of power struggle, ever ready to harmonize anything that came his way with his light, sensible, yet swingy piano style. As for Jesus, our guitar matador, this would be his chance to get deeply flamenco and play dark and hard, como los cojones de un burro. Meanwhile, Alberto would most likely leave the conga aside and opt for the cajon, not cojon. Because el cajón, mi hermano, as he used to say, is the king del silencio. So yes, it is in principle an impossible tune. A forbidden dance, if there is such a thing. A censor in the Mission District story built upon a series of improbable events that we have sworn to keep as secretive as we can. Although writers are always selling somebody out, I tell myself, quoting John Didion, as if to remind myself that I might be a traitor, but can't be really blamed for that. Or for being a hack, dangerous and ridiculous, like a virtuous man in an imperfect and corrupt world. This is my chance to play the villain, I suppose. So all of us could play the victims of our own ethos. The blind leading the blind. And guided, at least in the beginning, by the unremarkable yet unforgiving rattle of a rusted Safeway cart rolling down the empty streets of a sleeping city lost in the fog. For it all started with that metallic and repetitive sound in the middle of the night, and with Jesus, our guitar matador, feeling not quite responsible for himself. He had been hit hard, very hard, by the Spanish blues, a seasonal affliction that rendered him cantankerously at odds with his surroundings. Coño, he would scream. Tell me if there is anything more pathetic than San Francisco after midnight. At least with a fucking fog, I don't have to see that I live in a cemetery de la hostia. He knew what he was talking about, too, since almost every night and never before 2 o'clock in the morning, he had to face the streets of San Francisco as he walked back home after closing Café La Micha. I mean, he would go on, where are the fucking hipsters, the beats, the ex-hippies, the die-hard punks de los cojones? Where are the weirdos, the artists de la hostia, the so-called bohemians del coño de su madre? Where are the dot-comers with their baby faces and loaded with money? Where are the pimps, the whores, those classic creatures of the night? Where is the fucking music and the hip and multicultural San Francisco youth? Where are everybody flooding the streets of San Francisco in the late night, como gente civilizada? Why isn't everybody enjoying the night? Where is life? Por los cojones de mi abuela. Needless to say, Juan Jesus felt this profoundly flamenco. There was no turning back. He had to go to Manolo's studio on Virgin Alley and share a joint with him as he listened to Manolo's unpolluted Madrileñan accent after almost a lifetime in San Francisco. And since I can never go to bed before sunrise, and that night I certainly didn't feel like going home to write, I decided to walk with him. On foggy nights like this one anyway, it wasn't that unusual for us to keep each other company on our way home from La Micha. We lived 2 blocks away. So there we were, walking down Valencia Street practically blind because of the fog, and Jesus next to me. We were walking, and Jesus going on and on and on about what an insipid city de los cojones San Francisco is, when we first heard that monotonous rattle hammering against the night's slippery frog-like skin. Then, upon crossing the border, and remembering how much Alberto liked to say that Mission Street was Tijuana and Valencia was San Diego, And not before Jesus added that the distance between the two can't be measured in blocks, man. We noticed that the rattle got awfully close to us. Close enough, in fact, to give us the first glance of the floating wake of her white dress as she pushed the cart away with a desperate sense of purpose, like a homeless bride late for her midnight wedding. That was it. Or maybe I should say, that was all it should have been. But then came a wet, cold, a sticky urge to follow her. And as one pursues a ghost, an urban legend, a myth that had already left its fragile yet immortal mark on the most inhospitable alleys and hours of the mission. It was about time, we told ourselves. We ran into La Llorona, the boogeyman's bride, Frida la Loca, condemned to push her cart full of brushes and paint cans in penance for our sins. It could be argued, of course, that maybe all we wanted was to watch her paint. All we cared about was to witness the almost miraculous fact that madness had somehow not been able to take away everything away from her, especially what she loved most. All we needed was to have a chance to mourn and come to terms with the death of the Amanda we knew and our death inside her impermeable world. Considering then in a city big on murals, Amanda Vargas was one of its bigger stars, the Joan Baez of the Bay Area muralist, as the local press called her. It could never be overstated what a monumental tragedy her nervous breakdown had been. And given the fact that it was, and it is, simply impossible to walk the streets of the mission without running into her murals, I guess it was only to be expected that after that night, we would begin to take nightly walks, chasing Frida. That was how it all began. That was how it all ended too. That was how once, twice, sometimes 3 times a week, after Jesus flipped the open-close sign hanging from La Mission's door, Rosie, Guate, Ali, Jesus, of course, me, and whoever else wanted to come with us, would venture into the night, hoping to hear the sound of her cart, follow the flash of her white dress, and with almost anxious reverence, watch her paint her placa on a wall or garage door. As we wonder, as in her madness, she was still able to recognize her artistic legacy. Those giant and dramatically contorted hands and faces. When I paint, she used to say, I only care about hands and faces. Capturing and expressing the outer and inner drama of the brown people of America. To quote another phrase she loved to repeat, and that we imagine that had also lost all meaning